Welcome to Security with Spirits. I'm your host, Jason, and I'm joined at the bar by
Ben,
Jonathan,
and Tony. We'll tell you what to drink while we tell you about why we drink.
All right, so we're gathered here again. Let's start off with what everybody's drinking. I am drinking a Weller Antique 107. Pretty nice. Actually, I like it. Got the bottle gifted to me. Give it a try. Can't turn down free liquor. So pass it over to Ben. What you drinking?
well, I went to my local store to restock, and they apparently had a tasting, and they had a local distillery from Missouri come through. Everyone who tried it ended up buying a bottle, and so I said, what the heck, I'll try it out. It's a Truman Reserve Golden Valley. It's a straight bourbon whiskey. It is very tasty and it has a nice little embossed bottle. I'm drinking it neat, and it's very smooth, very, very delicious. Jonathan, what are you drinking?
I just killed a bottle of S.E. Callahan's Blood Orange and Honey. It's dangerous is the problem, but it's a fantastic blend. It's just very sweet. And luckily last weekend I picked up an extra bottle, so I've got another one ready to go. Tony, what have you got in your glass?
For tonight's signature cocktail, there's a cocktail called an Old Pal that's traditionally rye whiskey, Campari, and dry vermouth. And there's a milder variation called a New Friend. For our twist on this, we're calling this the Current Colleague. And inspired by Ben's previous Scotch experiments, I swapped the rye for Scotch, kept the Campari and vermouth in equal proportions, and added a few dashes of orange bitters, garnishing with an orange twist. I would call it a bracing cocktail for sure.
I'll have to try that out. That sounds delicious.
I have a kind of a random question. So all these whiskey bottles, there's some beautiful ones out there, but I also know there's like the decanters. So do you guys, I have a decanter. There's occasionally I'll be ashamed of a whiskey and I'll pour it in the decanter, but for the most part, I display the bottles proudly. What about you guys?
So there's two things. I've always heard with a decanter is where you put your social whiskey. You're not going to share your most valued ones with everybody that comes over. So you have a decanter that might have, it could be something that is expensive, just whatever you feel comfortable sharing. And the other thing I've heard is doing with a decanter is to, as you drink a bottle down, you'll always get down to where you have just a little bit left. You pour it into the decanter for every bottle that you finish. And by the time it's full, it'll be a mix of, say, the different bourbons and scotches and whiskeys and stuff you've drank over the last so many years. And you'll have like your own blend.
Oh, I like that. It's like the Endless soup broth.
Yes, yeah. I had started one. It's not gotten nearly full enough to try yet, but I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's going to be a nice mix of Islay scotches and some bottle and bond bourbons, so it'll be interesting what it comes out as.
Nice.
Now, I've wanted a decanter to keep in my den. Like I was wanting to put a little table in there with a decanter and some glasses and stuff and keep it separate, but like in my office, I had to add a shelf a couple months ago because I had too many bottles.
But it's true, like good-looking bottles, I think should be displayed, yeah.
Absolutely. But what you were talking about, Ben, I had started that, and it was the first drink went into a bottle, and it was like the never-ending bottle or something like that.
Yeah, I kind of like that, because then you don't have to wait so long. And what if you drink straight from the bottle? Then you're putting your backwash in there.
And then the bottle that you've been adding to, you can taste it over time, and then you get different flavors, and it grows over time.
I like that. I'm going to try that.
Jason, going to put that decanter to work now.
Well, I had been using it like you'd mentioned, Ben, first there about putting the embarrassing bottles of liquor into the decanter, the social bottles, if you will. So I'll just put my guest Wi-Fi password on the social bottle, and there you go. Whenever guests come over, be like, the Wi-Fi and booze are right there. That's what you get.
Put it at the bottom of the bottles. You got to finish this to get the code.
Awesome. Well, let's hop into the episode. So we have looked at vendors. We have done the POC, the proof of concept. We are ready to, at this point, either buy the product or tell them sorry. So let's talk about some of the experiences we've had, some of the things to watch out for, maybe some tips to help you out along the way.
So let's start with the bad experiences. There are plenty of times in which we evaluate products and we find that they just aren't right for us, not a fit, or it could be something as a business decision where the money's just not there to invest in it. And trying to tell the salespeople to stop calling or stop emailing me every week or every day, or stop calling me every week or every day that no, we are not going to buy your product has been painful, and I feel like that's something we've probably all experienced. How about you, Jonathan? Have you experienced this?
Oh, definitely. Was looking at one solution, and the POC didn't go well, and it just didn't fit the goals of the overall project and what we were trying to meet. And we finally kind of shut it down, and then the vendor come back and just really is almost like they took it too personal, like we were turning them down as a human being. And it wasn't that, it was just the software didn't meet the goals. And then a month or two later, got an email, and it was one of those automated ones like, hey, we're doing this webinar, and I found it interesting, and I'd clicked on it and registered for it. And I mean, within like less than an hour, I got an email back from that needy sales rep. Hey, I seen you clicked on this link. Let's set up some time and talk, and let's see what we can do to, kind of get this going again. I'm like, oh no.
Like he fished you?
Yeah, I'm like, I was just, wanting to learn some more about this specific area, and I no, we're not talking, and just had to block the domain that they were emailing from.
That'll stop them.
Yeah, yeah. Jason?
Honesty is always the best policy. Be upfront and honest with people. Whenever early on in my career, I was embarrassed to say that we didn't get the funding. It wasn't like it was coming out of my pocket, but still I felt embarrassed. We went through the whole thing, and I kept saying, well, maybe this and maybe that, and kind of stringing them along. And it was a horrible experience. So unfortunately, you got to have those tough conversations, and you got to say, it's not a fit. I'm sorry for whatever reason, and we're done. And it can be really tough. It can be like, I have heard everything from I've already put this sale through our system and it's going into my salary, and you're taking food off my kids' tables and stuff like that. Like,
wow.
Don't be that way. That's not what we're like. That will not only make it to where you've lost the sale now, but I'm not gonna deal with you later, and I'm not going to recommend you. Tony, how about you?
You make a good point. Like, that's the difference between a salesperson being selfish and a salesperson looking out for the good of the company, right? Maybe they take the loss on this sale, but you keep a good relationship so that later down, when you do have the funding or you do have a product that fits their needs, can come back. Whereas if you burn that bridge, that's gone. You leave it. If a salesperson leaves a bad taste in your mouth, you're done with that company altogether, right?
Yeah, and like especially with funding, like I know that they go back and they will try to get the best deal they can, try to give you those end of the quarter coupons or whatever. But they got to understand, like, get their personal interest out of this. I know they're on commission, right? Mm-hmm. But they got to get their personal investment out of this and understand that if you want even the chance of possibly selling to me later, then you need to be a good person about this. Like how many times, Jason, have you been bothered by salespeople even after you've told them no, and they keep trying to whittle a price down a few $1,000s?
Oh, it's horrible. They'll do that. They'll keep trying to knock the price down a little bit more, and then they'll go over my head. They'll hop on social media and they'll see, who I report to or other people in the division that have like titles or something like that. And they'll reach out to them and they'll say, what can we do to help Jason out? And it's not right. It's not a way. And Tony's right. You still have to have that relationship there, no matter what happens. Because if you make this thing go sour, it's going to go sour forever. Bridges burned. Like, I don't want to talk to you again because I don't want that experience again.
and maybe the company you're at now, it didn't work out, but then a few years down the road, you're somewhere else and in a different position. It's like, I remember looking at this tool and I think it'd be great here, and I think we can get the funding here.
Yep.
Whereas at the previous place, but now you're soured on it, even if it was a great product and, checked all the boxes that you needed to get checked.
And we should be more upfront with them about, we're vocal, we talk to our colleagues, and we will remember this experience, that we will review this product. This age of internet, the information age, we always have resources that we can ask and find out other people's experiences with certain companies. And they should know that they're putting their own personal interests above the company's own reputation.
It's one of the things that I don't see a whole lot out there, but we need to be better about it for, IT people. I know most IT people tend to be introverted, but we're still out there. We're on social media. We're checking up on the product before we buy it. Give back to the community. If you've bought it, if you've signed on the dotted line, you have the product now, even if you haven't, give your experiences out there. Let other people know, like, this is what's going on. This is how it went for me. Just share when you can.
And I'll tell you, one thing I've searched for that has helped is looking at the job postings that a vendor makes. If it's mostly sales and marketing and not a lot of tech jobs posted, it's a bad sign.
Oh, that is a good point. That's one thing that eats me up, is those companies that don't know how to handle people, but they still want to keep them. So instead of paying Joe engineer, pre-sales engineer, what he's worth, they promote him to a manager so they can pay him the money that he's wanting. And now you take a great performer and you put him in this role, and it just mixes the whole thing up for the customer and the company.
All right, can I pose a more general question? Like, how much of a sale is dependent on the product versus the people behind the product? Because we're reaching to the point where a lot of the security applications are sort of commodities, right? There's not a lot to differentiate them.
I'm a big believer of, you need to have that relationship with the vendor. And you're right. Unfortunately, we're in the day to where, people spin up software all the time, or services or whatever. And it's a big part of it. Like, you have to have services that fit the organization's needs, but you also have to have that relationship, because if something hits the fan, I want to be able to reach out to somebody, say, I've tried all the regular support channels and everything, and it's just not working. Please help me out. And having that relationship is super valuable.
Oh yeah, I remember the first vendor I really, I kind of got dedicated to this one system, and I had a TAM, and it was just awesome being able to just email this one guy, and if he couldn't find the answer, didn't know the answer, he grabbed like a level 3 engineer and dragged them in, and that just was an awesome experience. You don't get that with every vendor. But what about when things go right and you're going to choose the vendor? So what needs to be thought about there?
Well, step one, all the swag stops.
Oh, definitely. Why? That should be renewed every year.
I'm a valued customer. I would like a holiday present, a birthday present, something.
I want to speak to a little bit on the where they promote an engineer to a manager, because I can think of a couple times in my experience where that has happened. And I remember early on, especially early on in my IT career, I'm still just a help desk jockey to a junior admin. We had partnered with a company, and a big part of what made us decide, what made my input lean toward these companies, was the engineer was a mentor. They understood, hey, I get it. You're fresh to this biz. I will help you. I'll explain things to you, and I'll have your back with getting this implemented and working and everything. And both instances that happened, where the engineer got promoted to management, right, to pay him what he wants, and the service went down, and you find yourself kind of on an island a little bit. And I understand, like, they got to look out for their career, but it is really a sad aspect of the business when talent goes to the management pool.
What you're saying is it always goes back to HR screwing things up.
Is that it again?
So that's another thing that I want to hit on about earlier. I had mentioned about sharing your experiences, and we tend to do that a lot. It's really easy to complain about something, but for some reason we don't tend to talk up whenever good things happen. So whenever you find that experience, when you find that vendor that you like, tell them, tell their managers, tell social media, tell everybody. Like that kind of relationship. And I've had those relationships before where I'm like, I can count on them for anything. I feel it helps me sleep at night knowing that they got my back. And that is so valuable to me.
Well, we don't tend to talk about them enough. You know, I can see that. Think just because it's, I guess there's that piece in us like, they've got our back, and you know that's all we think about. We move on, but we'll complain about the ones that don't take care of us.
By the time I really consider just how helpful they were, I tend to forget. And it is something that I try to tell up and coming junior admins and such is when you get a good vendor or you get a good connection, especially now with social media, find that person, connect with them, and even if you just give a small like, hey, this guy really helped us here, that goes a long way.
When has a VAR ever actually added value?
Oh, that's a good point. So I had an experience one time where I was going through a VAR. We selected the product. We made the purchase. We went through budget. Everything got approved. We're good. We're going through, and all of a sudden they say, like, the final quote comes in, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars more than what it originally was. Like, what's going on here? Like, well, you need these additional services. No, I don't. And if I did, I should have been notified when we were in the budget period. Now I can't go back and say, I'm sorry, I was, my quote was off by more than half of the product cost. I'm stuck. Like, it makes me look terrible. And then whenever I have to say, no, I'm going to have to turn it down because this is way out of scope, way out of budget. Now, then they make me feel bad because they're like, oh, well, you didn't get this budget. Hopefully somebody's had that experience, right? What do you guys?
They are a variance added reseller.
Yes.
Not a value added reseller.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any time that I've ever been so happy to go with the company, the partnered company, reseller company, rather than just go directly to the company.
Right? I mean, they've outlived their usefulness, right? Like, you don't need that middleman anymore. You can deal directly with the vendor.
Yeah.
I can see some times where there are opportunities where you are looking for services to implement or something like that, but it shouldn't be the required way to purchase. These old partnerships these companies have where they point you to these people, that's all they're doing is scratching their back.
Mm-hmm.
It does not help us at all.
Tony Robot, you've opened up a can of worms, because now the pain of, you made the decision, you've picked the vendor, you've picked everything, you submit it for approval, and your organization goes, we're going to farm this out to 5 whatever companies and get the best price. And now all of a sudden, all those relationships that you built, all the everything, it's all gone, and it just goes to like the cheapest vendor.
Who knows they were picked just because they had the lowest price.
Yep.
And they're giving you the lowest price service too.
Oh yeah.
There went your whole idea of POC to prod too. So all that work's gone.
Now I gotta drink more. So what kind of ideas do we have to help everybody out? We've had a little bit of complaining. We had some good ideas. We had everything else. What kind of ideas can we bring to the table to improve this process?
Well, one thing that needs to happen, and anytime, whether it's a yes or no on the purchase, is whoever that account manager is, whoever is over the sales team, should send you a way to grade the sales team.
Yeah.
Like, Tony, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty common thing to get that follow-up email after you submit like a support incident, right? How is our service? So why not have the same sort of follow-up after a sales call? That makes perfect sense.
And don't make it too difficult. I don't want to spend an afternoon filling out a survey. Like, just I'll give praise, and I'll give my honest opinion. I'll do that, but I hate it whenever I'm like, I get through with one page and I click, what I'm thinking is the submit button, and it takes me to the next page. No, I just one page. I can sum it all up. It'll be fine.
I'll give 2 minutes on a survey.
Yeah.
If I read it, it's more.
Yeah.
It says this might take more than 2 minutes. I'm not going to do it. Or there's going to have to be a free Yeti tumbler at the end of it or something.
All right. Time for some patching. Let's go back and patch our previous episode. One of the things that we were talking about, though, that we kind of let slide by, and we'll talk about it briefly. It's a small patch, I promise. But whenever a vendor demos their software, know your software. I can understand technical difficulties. I can understand if the lab breaks or whatever, and you have to reschedule. That's forgivable. But whenever you're click, oh no, it's over here. Click, here, no, don't, nope, doesn't jive with me, fellas. What do you think?
Even if they aren't, say, a technical engineer or anything like that, maybe they are just a marketing person, they should be putting in reps. They should be like, okay, and then I click here, and then I click here, and then I do that.
And if not, have somebody on the call that does know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know some companies, they get upset because, well, they're this level engineer and we really need them working support tickets and things like that. Well, your salespeople look foolish because they don't, they're not going to master the software. They're too busy harassing people through email and phone calls.
Just bring on the sales engineer. Don't give me a salesperson. Give me the guy that can talk tech and quotes.
Or the implementationist, the guy that actually installs this all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. That's your first impression. You got to make a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Got to invest in that.
And maintain your test environments.
Yes.
Oh, and another thing, and I know this is nitpicky, but whenever you go to share your screen, be mindful of the tabs you have open at the top of your screen.
That is the first thing I look at anytime they share the screen. I look at what extensions they have. I look at their bookmarks.
Mm-hmm.
I look at what tabs they have. I look at what
yeah.
they have on their system tray.
Big oof. Yeah.
Yep.
Once you share your screen, we are dissecting every bit of it. So
Oh, yeah.
We absolutely judge you by your tabs.
Completely. And that could end your sale right there.
Oh my gosh. So
Or make it. I don't know.
All right, gentlemen, we had a really great discussion here. I think we've got another one after this, and that's the implementation. So stay tuned for the future episode. For this episode of Security with Spirits, I'm Jason.
This has been
Jonathan.
Tony.
And we will talk to you all later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hold on. I got to get this cat off my... It keeps jumping up on me. I'll be right back.
Time to refill.